Action Comics 1055. This is Philip K. Johnson writing with
Mhm.
Rafa Sandoval on the art. Let's get into it. This is obviously picking up all the stuff with. We had Metallo. Superman's trying to help Metallo now find his
Mhm.
sister. Cyborg Superman's showing up. I think we all said last time that we expected that he wasn't the mastermind behind it and he was just
Mhm.
the next sort of pawn. But there was a few
Yeah.
things at the start of this issue that kind of felt like he was saying he was the mastermind
Yeah.
behind it all.
Unless he thinks he's the mastermind.
Right.
Yeah.
But
he was like-
his dialogue definitely sounded like he was.
But that would be a very Henshaw thing to think, though, right? Like, because him being the technopath,
oh yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
him thinking that he, this plan was his entirely. I think there's some werewolfiness to him, some bleeding over of the tech. But,
Sheer effing hubris, to quote Picard. Not the character, the show.
Hey, could have been
Picard would
both.
never say that.
no.
So yeah, there's a lot of big fighting stuff in here. We've got Superman working with Metallo trying to find his sister. They wake up a version of the Eradicator. Again, the Death of Superman era homages keep coming.
they all end up here, right? We have the Metropolis Kid, we have Steel, we have the Man of Tomorrow, and then the Cyborg.
It's kind of. I'm bored of it now. I don't know if it's like really bad.
I don't.
Like,
I feel like Johnson made it work though, because they're using the Eradicator to find a clone.
yeah, but I just can't. I don't feel. As I was reading it, it took me out of the story because it no longer felt like, hey, this is a cool idea. It felt like, how do we make this work? How do we get them all here? And I've been feeling more steadily. I mentioned last time when it threw in Cyborg Superman. And now this time, very next issue, let's throw in Eradicator. And I'm kind of like, all right, okay.
I just like that it led to Kara being like, don't activate it, and you know why.
Yeah.
And Clark goes, but we have to. But just the whole idea that they know that there's going to be this essentially Kryptonian racist AI that comes out, not racist, supremacist, that comes out, and it's almost like it's a piece of their history that they don't want to engage with. But Clark's like, but this is how we're gonna, find Cyborg Superman.
I'll tell you what I liked about the story the most. I actually kind of liked the two Krypton kids like hating Metallo. But then oddly, kind of him bonding with them a little bit because he sympathizes with them looking out for each other because he looks out for his sister. That little bonding, and it was almost like a lesson moment for them that they're looking at Metallo just as evil villain, but through the conversation and learning about his sister, like, oh, maybe there's actually something more to him, that we can't just completely write him off. There's actually something relatable to him.
Well, there's trauma there, and they understand trauma being from Warworld, right?
Yeah, I like that.
So,
it's something Johnson's consistently done, even when it's wrapped up in a more just sort of typical outrageous Superman plot.
I forget which one. It's Otho or Osel, but the older one.
We narrowed it down to both of them.
Yeah, but the girl says, she calls him, unmade. She won't even address him as Metallo, and so it just shows where she's at, and he gets that protective vibe from her, right? That she's trying to protect her little brother, and that's what rings with him. So now I'm just hoping nothing bad happens to them. What's that?
She definitely has some rage issues going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it sort of reiterates some of his backstory again, but kind of reveals now that he shot his father to protect his little sister. So it's just kind of like bringing up his dark background a little bit more, and that sent him down a military path where his sister went into foster care.
And him and Captain Cold definitely should get drinks together, because I feel like they'd vibe.
They probably would. Yeah, there's definitely some parallels there. So yeah, they go looking for Cyborg Superman, which they do find, and he's got a bit of more of a monstrous metal claw, I will call it.
Yeah.
He's beefed up a little bit, but it turns out that he's actually done some kryptonite enhancement stuff with Metallo's sister, and she's got seemingly some extra strength and powers here at the end. So that's the big cliffhanger, is that she's been turned into one of Cyborg Superman's henchmen, effectively.
Very clearly against her will.
Yeah, yeah. I suspect if we get any kind of happy ending out of this, it'll be saving her. Metallo's probably still going to have to go to prison or whatever it may be. But
yeah, the way that Metallo was talking, though, he's done. He's done running, right? That's his moment. He's ready to serve for his times. And so I'm wondering if this whole thing is what leads to her becoming the next version of Metallo, right? Almost like the 2.0, because we got that thing from Cyborg Superman that he was awakened from the Phantom Zone, but this is just a copy of his operating system, basically, right? That he copied it out through Luthor's, satellites and whatnot. So I'm wondering if that's how this is going to jump through. Like she becomes the next, because of that AI-ness of, Henshaw.
I mean, if they want to go for a more tragic outturn from it, then yeah, I can maybe see that. I feel like there's enough heart in the story. I'm kind of expecting her to be saved, but I mean,
yeah,
we'll see where it goes. I think the characters bonding and the way that someone, because a big strength of the last few issues has been how John's been relating to the kids and their connections and relatability, and I think it's interesting that again these kids have been used to make a nice little narrative point about Metallo and looking at him as a villain and how you consider him. So I think there's always these little smart character utilizations throughout this, and I think I think it's interesting that these two young characters, these new characters, and you know what comics fans are like. Anytime there's new characters introduced, there's always a not a backlash, but like just a lack of acceptance of
this goes back to the 80s where they voted to kill Jason Todd.
Yes.
They hated him so much.
To be fair.
Yes.
Oh, he is
still
Jason
Todd.
Yeah, he is the worst. But I think it is very notable though that throughout this last arc or so, these two kids have constantly been used to be the linchpin of the drama that's been the best part of each issue. Like they've constantly been used in that way, and I think that is a sign that at the very least Johnson here as the writer is introduce characters to actually tell good narrative stories and like make the humans and not even I'd say the humans, just the characters in general more relatable and more grounded because of how they relate to these characters. I guess it's kind of similar to having the new character who can ask all the questions for the reader to find out stuff. It's kind of like that, but in a more nuanced way where it's more about them revealing the emotions and feelings of the other characters in a way that comes up naturally that they can sort of learn about, as it's them coming of age and sort of try to understand the world, especially since they've been separated. This is new to them, all of it. I think it's been a really smart utilization as a writer throughout this. Yeah,
because they're processing everything the same way we are, because this is all new to them too.
Probably newer.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I do really like the Rafa Sandoval in the art doing Metallo's origin, right? Not as Metallo, but as young John Corbin. It's done in over like Polaroids, so just the layouts and stuff. I thought that was a real nice way to do it.
It's like that pinned up on a board.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I don't know if that exact style was there before, but certainly this the coloring is very similar to the last couple of times we've had flashbacks with.
Just like a sepia filter.
Yeah. Effectively, yeah.
Everything's kind of beige and.
Yeah,
but I definitely like how they look like their pictures pinned to a wall.
I love the idea that the color is just do the same coloring, but then they literally just put it into a computer and hit sepia filter.
I wonder how much different it would have been. Like, how different it is. Yeah. I genuinely maybe it is worth them doing that because if let's be honest, those filters are so commonplace they work. Right? They're one of those ones that you can reliably use because every software for photos has a version of it, presumably because it's easy enough to do. So maybe it is easy enough for the colorist to just do it like normal and slap a filter on it.
Maybe it's more about tweaking. You can tweak things more if you're just actually doing it with the right colors instead. But
that's what I feel like. That's what makes the coloring part of the art form of comics, right? Is they know what color spectrum to use to hit those tones and make it sepia tone. But if they really just wanted to make it look like an old movie, I'm sure they could put a filter.
I'm sure a lot of coloring now is done digitally, and they probably do use
most. I would say,
they probably use like Photoshop techniques to achieve things like something as simple as just making sure they're picking. Let's say they want 3 shades of a color. They can just use the computer to just tell them this is a couple of steps down from this shade,
right?
Rather than having to eyeball everything, they can just use the computer.
Yeah, that's just using technology to speed up your workflow.
I mean, the tools, right? They're just using your tools that are free. But it's the art. I like the designs of Metallo because he's this big monstrous, he's in like a Luthor suit still, right? And then when we see his sister, and she looks like what we, like an evil android, kind of what I associate with Metallo, before he starts fighting Superman. So just the dichotomy between those two. Also, I think Sandoval is really working well here.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think as a story chunk, the main story here is as good as the last few chapters, but it's still really solid, and I still like what it's doing with the building between the character relationships. So, it's still really good stuff. Obviously, we have the backup stories here as well, the first of which, of course, is the one we've had the entire time, which is this Lois and Clark 2 stuff with the princess from the alien world now has John kidnapped and wants...
Princess Joffrey, if you will.
and now wants Superman to come and like squash the rebellion. This was okay. I think, honestly, the turn that she was actually evil and just wanted Superman to like squash the rebellion against her was kind of a weird left turn to me, and nothing in this part really alleviated that feeling. I still just kind of feel like it's a weird direction that it's went in, but
it has nicely weeks art, so
yeah. And we're talking about colors, right? Elizabeth Brettweiser, who usually works with Phillips and Brubaker. So
yeah, she used to work with them on pretty much everything.
Do you know what? I didn't realize
she's a
that.
master of the flat colors.
Yeah, I didn't realize that, but now you've said she usually works with Brubaker, I can see it. now you've told me that, I can see it in the art.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's like I said, I think it's I believe it's Phillips's son that does the colors now.
Yeah, I think it's Jacob Phillips now, right?
Yeah. But for most of their careers, it was her that did
So
all their
she
stuff
got
together.
ousted because of nepotism. That's what you're telling me.
maybe she wanted to just work with superhero comics. I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Thought someone start a campaign to support her. She's been wrong done by that evil
Hey,
man.
I'm buying Action Comics. All right, I'm doing I'm doing at least partial of it.
This cannot stand. The Phillips regime must fall.
Yeah, but they've got a new book coming out next month, and I need it. So
Is it part of the Ruthless? Because I need to start.
no, it's the first thing they've done that's not a Ruthless one. Since they started doing those.
Yeah.
I think it's called. I'm completely blanking. I'll get it up. It's
cool.
I'm sure it's still like a noir thing, though.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything. Like even Fatale, which I know most people are real low on. I love the hell out of it.
It's called Night Fever, and it's another graphic novel one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's how much we enjoyed this story from.
Clearly, yeah. That said, though, I read all of this one, whereas the last backup, I started reading and just sort of pieced out after a few pages.
I read two panels and then remembered, oh yeah, I didn't read the Steel part last time because I got bored, and then I just got.
Okay, guys, let's buckle in because everything you think is going to happen, it happens. However, there is some fun stuff in here with Steele giving a presentation on his view of being a future city, right? Because you always hear that Metropolis is the city of tomorrow. And so the way that John goes into it, where he's like, look, with my technology, with the way that this city takes damage, if we build things with my tech, we can, use that kinetic energy to fuel the whole city. And so in that, there is, and this is the worst part easily, is he has Natasha and Connor trying to break into the building while they're talking. And Natasha's telling Connor that, she has a bet with her uncle that if he can get, she can get through this, then, she can, there's like a monetary value or whatever. The dialogue between those two made me want to throw my book into a fire. Like it was, I think it was Pete on Twitter it had big fellow kids energy. Like,
oh yeah, no. Talking Superman posted a panel complaining about slang being used in dialogue. I don't think it's always bad, but there's definitely a lot of times where it really takes me out of it. And this is an example of it.
I don't mind it as long as the slang is age appropriate for the characters saying it.
Right, but even this was very. I don't know how old Dorado Quick is, but like this is all slang from like a year and a half ago.
Well, the slang is very contextual to me. If it's slang that's used to show they're in a specific place and these are characters that are from a specific location,
right,
I can be okay with that. But anything that's just kind of hip, trendy things to say just feels really forced to me. But yeah, no, Talking Superman posted that, and I responded to it with the "How do you do, fellow kids?"
Yeah, because and no, it's spot on because I hadn't read Action yet when I came across that thread, and I was wondering what book it came from. And as soon as I turned the page and saw, I was like, oh. And no, it's so rough. So, but yeah, so the rest of the story is John giving that presentation and him selling this like almost like it's a board of supervisors for Metropolis. It's like civic leaders and business leaders.
I'm skimming. I just wanted to see if I could find some of the slang.
Yeah.
And all I got is him talking about blockchain, 256-bit encryption, and AI. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to read this at all.
Well, no, that wasn't even the part.
No, but just seeing that in
Yeah.
a block of wall of text.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as I got to the meeting with Steele talking to the investors, I just checked out. I was like so boring and shit to read. I just didn't
and
know
that's what it was, and it's all stuff that I am familiar with from Twitter, right? But it is from what I can garner from it was him saying like the whole point of this technology is that it puts Metropolis into the hand of the people, right? Is that they'll know when attacks happen, right? Because he deploys these steel drones, and that it's basically the people can request this type of stuff. So as long as there's people looking out for Metropolis, Metropolis will look out for the people, and that's all really nice. And then someone makes a phone call, one of the board people, and they're kind of hinting that it's Luther.
This
ends
is
up being
boring
Mr.
even
Terrific.
listening to Matt speak about it.
Yeah. So ends up being Mr. Terrific, who introduces himself to John in a way that I've never heard Mr. Terrific talk. Right? Mr. Terrific is like he's not cool, right? He's the world's smartest man. He's a little bit awkward. He's very cold. So when he goes, "Hey, brother," I am just like, that's not how Michael Holt talks, So just again, there's just some real try-hard kind of dialogue, and then otherwise, like, I get what they're doing with steel and the steel works and trying to make it the city of tomorrow. That's all very commendable. But yeah, a lot to do nothing. And I figured you two wouldn't have read it. Well, at least Pete, because I wasn't factoring Connor. I knew Pete wasn't going to get through when I got through the Natasha and Connor stuff. I was like, oh, Pete's already checked out.
I got to the hammer time joke, and I was like, this is losing me.
No, I didn't get that far.
No, the hammer time joke doesn't even work out either.
I was like, oh yeah, I didn't read this last time. Goodbye.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's really a damper. On an otherwise, both of these backups kind of, I don't want to say bringing the book down because I enjoy the main book, but yeah, it would be better without these.
Let's get to rating the book then, Matt. What you got?
I'm gonna give it an 8, mainly for that main story.
Connor?
I'm gonna give it a 7. I think throwing in more Death of Superman stuff just is it's taking me out of the story a little bit. I'm feeling the real world.
Yeah, it's definitely a mid-story issue. So probably a 7.5 for me. I'll split the difference. I don't necessarily mind bringing the Eradicator in though, in the way it is. I think if he actually showed up as a villain, I would probably be a bit more like down and cynical on it. But the way it was used here, I think was fine.
Yeah.